over here at Finest. Today I am making one of my favorite cabbage recipes, and I really like cabbage. So I do a lot of different cabbage dishes, but this one is newer to me than most. I was introduced to it a few years ago by a friend whose family is Danish, and this is called Danish Christmas Cabbage. Now, I believe, if I understand correctly, that normally this was served around Christmas time and was kind of a special holiday dish. But anyway, my friend shared it with me. I loved it because it's kind of a sweet and sour thing, which I really enjoy in general. And like I said, I like cabbage. And he was telling me how he always has to, buy up plenty of it when the grocery stores have it right over the holidays, because that's the only time to carry it. But I gave a look at what was the ingredients of the canned version you could buy at the grocery store. It's got a lot of high fructose corn syrup and such in, so I decided I could probably figure out how to make my own. So this is something I do pretty regularly now. I do not save it for just a holiday treat by any means. I eat it as a side dish with various things all year round. So, you could do this with white cabbage, I'm sure, but it's much prettier with purple. It's my pretty purple cabbage heads. And I do like to do this with cabbage I've grown. If I get enough cabbage in a particular year, I will sometimes make extra and can it or freeze some if I can, because this is something, like I said, that I enjoy eating all year round. But I've gone through all that I made last fall, and so it's time to make some more. So to do this, you can look up, there's quite a few different recipes online, but I'm basically just slicing my cabbage heads. I've quartered them all, taken the cores out, and now I'm just making, quarter, half-inch slices, something like that, of the whole head, and then cutting those in about thirds. So that I end up with just bite-sized pieces. Like that one's a little bit long, but it's going to cook down just a bit. And I'm doing 2 heads at once because I like this stuff. But you can certainly easily do this with just 1 head at a time. But if you like anything sweet and sour and you like a pretty color dish to add to a meal, and you like cabbage, which is generally really nutritious and very inexpensive, even if you can't grow your own, this is a fun dish to try. And if you're Danish, you're probably already familiar with this, but I was not, and I like it. So I'm just going to cut up all my cabbage in here. And in general, guys, if you are thinking about the health of the food you're eating and you're cooking, it is a good plan to get a wide variety of colors into your food. Now, I don't mean food coloring, but actual food colors. If you can do purple cabbage and green cabbage and, yellow, orange, and white sweet potatoes and yams. There's purple of those as well. Actually, my grocery store never has them, but I know they exist. You can grow, like I talked about in my garden planting video, I grew pink and purple and lavender and orange and yellow and red carrots. But the more different colors you get in your diet, those different colors in a plant, like a cabbage, are indicative of different little micronutrients and such in the plant. And so it's just gives you a better, more well-rounded nutritional profile of your food if you eat lots of different colors, and especially if everything's not white and yellow like a lot of processed foods. So I'm going to fill all of this cabbage in here. Like my little bamboo cutting board, because they're so easy to clean, and I try to stay away from plastic stuff as much as possible. If you guys go back and look at my oiling the countertops video, you see how I maintain my cutting boards as well as my butcher block countertops in here. There we go, 2 whole heads of purple cabbage. And so I've got a fairly good size stock pot over here, as you can see. This is my biggest one. Someday I'm going to have to get some bigger ones, but this is the biggest one I have right now. So cabbage done. I'm going to rinse these off. Okay, so into here, and as you know, I don't tend to measure very thoroughly. We want about equal parts water and vinegar, enough to get this cooking. You could use any kind of vinegar you like. I recommend a raw, real, natural, like Bragg's or something like that. But since we are going to cook this for a little while, we are going to definitely be killing some of the bacteria that is beneficial in a raw vinegar. So if you've got some just, you know, plain apple cider vinegar or something like that, that would be fine to use for this. But what I'm actually using is kombucha vinegar. I need to do a video on making kombucha, but when you've got one jar, and I've got several, that you kind of ignore and forget about because you're busy and let go too long, it turns from a palatable kombucha drink into vinegar. And I use it for cooking, just exactly like I use any other vinegar. So that's why I'm using this. It's not quite old enough to be crazy strong, so I'm going to do a little extra vinegar compared to my water proportions than I would do if I had a stronger, more mature vinegar. But it's too vinegary for me to want to drink. So I'm going to say that's approximately equal proportions of water and vinegar in there. Just light up my propane stove here. Leave that toward the high end for a minute to get it warmed up. And just make sure, I don't know if you can see on the camera down in the bottom there, that, you know, put 1.5 inches or so of liquid in the bottom. And that is going to, this is going to cook down quite a bit. Now the other things that are going in there are black pepper. I could do fresh ground, but this actually takes a good bit of pepper, so I'm just using pre-ground that I have some left of. And so I don't accidentally get the whole entire jar of pepper in there. I'm going to say that's a hefty, like 2 tablespoons or so. Maybe even go a little more. This recipe is supposed to have a little more of a peppery flavor to it than most dishes I normally do. I'm not a big black pepper fan. And salt. This is my Celtic Grey salt. I like using various salts with lots of minerals in them. I'm going to do a good 2 tablespoons of that as well. One of my favorite things about the Celtic is that it's pretty high in magnesium, which a lot of, at least America, tends to be pretty deficient in. So I think getting more of that in your diet is always good. It's good for relieving muscle cramps, tension headaches. If you're magnesium deficient, you're going to have all kinds of issues. For females, going to have more cramping with your period. So there's lots and lots of reasons you want to get plenty of magnesium in your diet. And then, because this is a little sweet and sour, you could use any sweetener you want. I'm going to, I could use honey, but again, because it's cooked and I'd be killing a lot of the beneficial bacteria and such, or enzymes in the honey, I don't want to do that. So I'm going to use, I've got a raw cane sugar here. This is just an unrefined sugar. And the original recipes I've seen call for almost equal amounts of sugar and vinegar, and I go way less than that. That was probably like a 1/2 cup or something of sugar, and I think I've got 2 or 3 cups of vinegar. You can make it sweeter if you want. I enjoy it without it being that sweet, so I go pretty light on that, just enough to give it a little bit of a sweet flavor. It's going to start cooking away there in a minute. And then the one other thing that's kind of optional that you can do, that I've seen in a lot of recipes, there's some variation. There'll often be some other kind of sweet fruit in there. I've seen some recipes that say put apples in. I've seen some to put various berries or currants in. It seems to work really well for me to just do a little bit of a jam of some kind. This is a blackberry jam. It was actually a gift from a friend. And I'm just going to put a couple tablespoons of blackberry jam in there to add to the flavor. Delicious jam as well. And that, of course, is adding some sweetening from both the blackberries and their sugar in jam. So that's everything that's going in here. And now we're just going to let it get hot. I'll stir my salt and pepper down under there so that it starts to dissolve into the moisture. But I can feel the steam starting to come through there. And I'm just going to put the lid on to kind of let that steam. As soon as it starts to actually simmer, I'm going to turn that down so that it's just on a just barely simmering, and let it go for at least a half hour or so, because I want to cook all the flavors thoroughly through everything. Some of the recipes say to cook for a couple hours, but I find that makes it really, really mushy, and I kind of like just a little bit of a less cooked to mush texture on mine. So again, you could do whatever you like as far as that. But we'll check back in here in a little bit once it's getting soft to show you what that looks like. See you in a minute. Okay guys, about 25 minutes later here, we're going to check in on this. See lots of steam rolling out there. If you're new to cooking, do beware when you've got a pot that's simmering like this and it's got hot liquid in there, there's going to be steam. So when you open a lid, make sure you tip it away from yourself so the steam goes out this way. If you initially open it this way to just peek in, it's really easy to steam burn your arm or possibly your face and your body. That is no good. Just a tip to think about. Now you can see how the cabbage is cooked down. It used to be up at about this level on the kettle, so it's shrunk about half there as it's cooked and the moisture is cooked out. But you can also see how much more juice we've got in there, and the cabbage color has changed a little bit from a bright raw purple to a little bit more of a cooked purple. Still a pretty color, just a different shade. So that is looking pretty good. Let's give it a taste here. See what we got. Trying to get just one chunk so it's not too hot. Tastes pretty good. The flavor's still just a little bit diluted because we've got all that juice in there, so I'm going to let it get some pepper in my mouth there. I'm going to let it just simmer here for a little bit longer with the lid off now. So now that it's mostly cooked through, so that some of that extra moisture evaporates, kind of concentrates the flavor in there a little bit and makes it a little bit thicker. So, and the steam will be really nice to add to the house since it's winter and I heat with wood, and that tends to make a house dry. So anything cooking with extra steam is always nice, even though I keep water on the wood stove as well. So we're just going to let this simmer here for a little bit longer till some more of that moisture has evaporated and it's just thickened up a little bit. And then it's basically going to look the same except a little less juicy and a little thicker. Then you could serve this right this minute. You could refrigerate. You could serve it cold or warm later. Like I said, if I have a ton of purple cabbage at the end of the year, more than I can keep or use fresh, I will often make some and actually can it, which you could do, or freeze it, but it gets a little bit more of a watery texture when you freeze cabbage. That's not my favorite. But anyway, this is a nice side dish. I've served this with all kinds of things. Any kind of meat, you know, could have it with elk steaks or meatloaf or baked chicken or, you know, whatever. It's just a nice veggie side to have with meals. And while this is not really fermented because we've just cooked the vinegar in there, vinegary or fermented foods are really important to get into your diet, and they actually help improve your digestion because adding the extra acid to your stomach. So having a little bit of something with a vinegary or fermented taste to it with every meal is, and you don't have to eat a whole plate full of it, but a little bit of it is often helpful for improving your digestion of all the other things you're eating. So that's something else to think about. Let's go simmer away there, and I'm going to have some for dinner later. And a few meals after that. Okay, it's been simmering for just a little longer. You can see how the juice has been reduced. The whole thing looks kind of thicker. The purple color is blended pretty well. Just gave it a taste. The flavor seems good. And that is good to go. If you've never tried Danish Christmas cabbage, give it a shot and let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, folks. If you're interested in more info on my off-grid tiny house life, check out some of my other videos here. And if you like what you're seeing, click the little picture of my house to subscribe and then hit the little bell so YouTube actually notifies you every time there's a new video available. See y'all next time.